All right, guys, thanks for clicking on the video. That was a test, but we'll get into that later. First up, I'm going to show you 3 images, and you guys can tell me what they have in common. Here's an image of Donald Trump, a police officer at a traffic stop, and a nagging girlfriend. All right, what they have in common is we don't want to listen to them. And why is that? That's because the majority of these instances, hypothetical instances, they involve a lot of negative criticism. And that's criticism with us as the subject, whether they're criticizing our actions and what we're doing and how we're living, or we're criticizing them as the subject, or criticizing them as the subject where we're criticizing their actions and how they're doing. Like, no, officer, I wasn't doing this, you're wrong, or Donald Trump, you're an idiot, or whatever the hell, they're surrounding a negative communication, and communication is like a relationship. The communication ends when the decoder just gives up, choosing not to engage. That stops communication. Just like a relationship, you need mutual engagement.
Okay, yeah, so tons of research shows that when you include more positivity and optimism in your message, it directly improves the communication multidimensionally, whether that be interpersonal communication, mass communication, organizational, whatever, it doesn't matter because it just, So what do we need to do in 2020 to improve communications? Media as a whole, whether that be individuals or like organizations, need to create a code that we all accept. And that code needs to be that we're going to be creative enough in our message to speak positively so everyone can hear the message. Otherwise, as technology enables us to choose what kind of media we engage with, we as a society will continue to divide and disengage in localized societies and in sub-communities. We'll continue in this weird niche culture because we no longer want to decode the messages being encoded because of its criticisms. Okay, so Netflix has a show called 100 Humans where they engage in social studies, and they had this specific social study where they had plate spinning. And it was a study against praise versus criticism, where the plate spinners span for an instructor, and then he would either randomly give them praise for however they performed, or criticism. Okay, so there was this really good female spinner, and she spanned the plate, she fulfilled all the tasks, but then she was criticized, and when she returned, the second time to see if she could do better for her score, she cut her score in half. And then there was this older gentleman who, did really poorly the first time he spanned the plates, and when he was followed up by criticism, he came back and just didn't even try the second time. And, there was this other girl who was, crappy, and when she got praised, she did twice as well.
Okay, so Kirkus filed The Power of Bad. It's under the negative effect, which is a universal tendency for bad things to affect us more than good things. And that's been studied time and time again because bad sells, and that's what the media tries to push all the time. But what Kirkus challenges in his study is to reframe the context of the negative. So isolate the rotten apple so it doesn't ruin the lunch. So well, usually, let's move over to here so you can use this empty space here so I can explain stuff to you. The apple's rotten, let's get rid of it, right? And that's the common thing, that's framing it in a negative critical context. He would challenge us to do something. It's not just take it to this step, which is the apple is rotten and it will ruin the rest of us, let's get rid of it. That's still not fulfilling what Kirkus was talking about. He wants us to pursue a chance to reframe the communication and the criticism to all these good apples are going to get ruined by the rotten one. Let's get rid of it. Because you want to bring it back to a positive note. In his study, he goes into the fact that Yelp reviews for a specific, business improved in that study because it was simply implementing a policy that worked. Workers at the end of each shift and the end of every customer engagement, they would leave it on a positive note, and that changed the average score from a 1-star facility to a 5-star facility. So negative reinforcement, while it isn't wrong, it just needs to be balanced. Negative reinforcement is essentially just torture. If it's just negative, it's just torture. And tons of studies have shown time and time again that torture just simply doesn't work ever. You need to find balance. So the effects of positive communication on the elderly people, Dines in 2017, did a study on that. And right now, that's kind of relevant because we're kind of, worried about, those communities right now, especially with this whole quarantine, COVID-19 stuff going on. And so what are ways we can improve communication with them right now in 2020? So Dines found that positive social interactions and engagement proves to considerably improve the quality of life and emotional well-being of an elderly person. So that means the more engagement they have with other people, and in social interaction, that's what helps them. It develops their self-esteem. It helps them become even more independent, increase resilience in residential home living. So when you live with strangers, the more people you talk to, the better you get at it. Physical activity increases in health, like they get more active, and interpersonalization with new people occurs. And that's like a big thing that I wanted to highlight, is that the elderly, once you improve communication with them, will continue to create new interpersonal relationships with people. That's not, teaching old dog new tricks. They're making new friends too. When you spread positivity in the workplace, Riva, last year's study, she studied ICTs, which is information community technologies. That's basically like memos, emails, to-do lists, smartphone, tablets, stuff. Any way that you use technology to communicate with your employees or employer. And she studied positivity integration with this technology. And she found that when you integrate scientific principles of positive psychology into the design of the experience in the work environment, it will help the human-computer interaction, and on a theoretical level, it develops conceptual frameworks and models for understanding on how computers can be effective to achieve greater well-being. So what I'm spitting out basically is that when you integrate positive communications into your technologies, you not only do the individuals learn how to use the technologies better because they want to interact with them more, because they start to decode. That was the thing I was talking about with criticism and positivity. So they'll decode this information, learn how to use technology better, and on top of that, they will feel more fulfilled in their lives. Like, I get excited when I get an Good Noodle star from my job. Like when I get an email from Lowe's that says, "Wow, you did great," blah 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 blah. That feels great, even if it's a stupid email. I'm still waiting on the badge I never got, but it's things like that. So on a methodological level, improving ICTs and positively, they're concerned with design, development, and validation of the digital experience. But they want to improve the relationship between the technology and the individuals, and that's something they struggle with, especially in like age groups. And so, so like I was saying, like I would feel so much better as an employee of Lowe's if my store would shout me out, maybe on Twitter and be like, "Yo, like Lowe's tweeted at Luce's Juice, you were great, blah, 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 blah." That's awesome, because it creates a digital interpersonalization between you and your employer, and that's where we're headed now in society anyway. Villajero, or however you say their name, they found that happy conversations lead to happy societies. So positive communication improves the quality of the society as a whole. Communication has an interdisciplinary nature, like it's in everything. Like you can't not communicate no matter what field you interact with society through. And some studies done to see if positive communication in politics and science could improve social impact of society, and they found that it did. Enough that the UN now considers studying the effects of positive communication in political cultures to improve societies in like third world countries. So they're going to try to improve the positive communications in these like dictatorial countries and like these third world countries, second world countries, and see if that actually boosts the economy of the community itself as a whole. Okay, so it's a psychological phenomenon called savoring. It's something that Pitts 2007 studied when it comes to communication. It's a process of mindful attending to enhance feelings of pleasure associated with that experience. So when you savor something, you start to mindfully attend it, and you just start to reassociate things with it, and enhancing the experience you have. So positive psychological construction, that's basically what it is, and it improves a person's capacity to recognize, appreciate, and improve the interaction, the decoding of the message. It entails a social dimension where the individuals diversify their interpersonal sharing with new people. So like when you start to savor, you start to relate on a deeper level, where you can start to diversify the information. You have an open mind now. You're not shut off the way criticism would shut you off. Savoring serves to enhance, facilitate, and generate positive emotions and experience. And people use this to broaden and build upon their own resources to develop their quality of life and relational resilience. So the more savoring occurs in communication, the better we all get at communicating. And the better we get at communicating, it broadens our resources, because the more you communicate, the more you know. The more you know, the more tools and information you have. You know, so like this could only help. Criticism just slows things down. There's no point for it. Anyway, so as I was saying, so right now in today's society, anyone can post anything at any time. You know, there's an abundance of outlets to produce mass media. Like I can post a picture of my grilled cheese sandwich right here, take a bite, you know, and within seconds, and hypothetically, 104,000 Australians can see my bitten grilled cheese sandwich. Anyone can see it. It's on the internet. You know, the Pentagon's just dropped proof that UFOs exist, and we all just, you know, we're all just so tired of hearing information from our U.S. government, the criticism that's going on, that we didn't decode that message at all. You know, the force is unbalanced, to speak in like layman's terms and to make an analogy. And if mass media does not develop and adopt this universal code of balance and a positive communication, people will start to continue to decode less and less and less of the media that's being presented to them. You know, continue on with their niche culture, resulting in less communication, less interpersonal relationships on a global scale. This matrix, however, it does have a code. And our criticisms, you know, like if we broke up the code, it would be like, it needs to be helpful. You know, criticism without a solution is unbalanced. You know, like you can't criticize without presenting an alternative. You know, the code needs to be emotionally intelligent. You know, you just don't be an ass for no reason. There's no point for it. That's where the creative part lays. That's what Kirkus was getting at, trying to find creative ways to encode the same message. And optimism, because optimism and pessimism is a choice at the end of the day, and you can quote me on that. It's my own quote. So an example of a Neo message as horrible news would be like, oh, well, while in the 3 last months have been long, COVID-19 has only taken 1/3 of the 1% of us. And if we can keep it that at a low, we just need to stay away a little longer. In the grand scheme of things, what's 6 months for 6 years with all of your best friends? The only way we do this is stay away and let the experts worry about the vaccines. I basically told you that COVID-19, I told you, you know, how many people are affected by it, that we need to stay away and the vaccines are being, you know, handled by the experts. But a Mr. Smith version of that message, which is my point, which is this critical thing that we're all doing, you know, that mass media is doing without this code, is they'll go like this. COVID-19 has killed more than 1 million people in 3 months, setting the record for the death toll in coronavirus-like virus deaths in 2020 in just March. And there's no cure and end in sight. Experts are trying to find out how to make a vaccine, and everyone needs to continue to stay home or people will die. I said the same information twice, but one was so much more morbid, and you didn't want to hear it, you know? So because we are what we eat when it comes to communication, figuratively speaking. And the kind of mass communication that we get fed will determine what kind of communication that we're willing to eat. You know, and the fear is that we continue to not eat it, we'll be malnourished. And we won't grow in communication with the way the technology has been growing around us, and rather it will continue to divide us in the way that it has been doing. And unless mass media becomes more responsible, altogether more responsible, you know, we're going to continue to abuse the freedom of its content, especially in this new technological environment. Okay, also just a quick second, a message from my sponsor, the North Face. I had to, you know, shout them out because they did, you know, sponsor the beginning of this video. Shout out to the North Face. You know, we got to shout them out. Hell yeah.
Great products, ladies and gentlemen.
Great products right there.